your ship in dry dock.
Well, no, not necessarily. But you got to remember that the cargo that is in the ship will dictate where the water line is on it to a degree. So if it is empty when they paint it, and then it gets checked when it is fully loaded, the scratches they didn't paint are well below the water line, and therefore won't be seen.
That's fair.
Yeah, you'll see like on a lot of the modern ones, just about all of them, they have that bulbous bow thing going on. They're not like a traditional line of a ship.
It's so ugly.
Yeah, it is ugly, but a lot of those, when they're empty, that thing is sticking up out of the water.
Yeah.
Noticeably so.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
So I would have to say
I still like this Left for a New Life better, but
but
I like the next theory.
Well, pirates.
Pirates.
Well, who doesn't love pirates?
Anything. Just
I've got my hat on now.
Fly around.
Yeah, and actually
ask us to do anything.
Oh, go ahead.
We'll just tell you.
You're in a singy mood tonight.
We don't do anything.
The new job is obviously having an effect on Devin.
It's a good one.
Obviously in a better mood than the usual.
Yeah. Not grumpy anymore. It's true.
Hey, that's good for us.
Might be this can of wine too, but who knows?
It's a whole new podcast. But anyway,
pirates.
Pirates, they're not unheard of. I mean, and actually taking over small boats and robbing them, taking their boat and selling it, that kind of thing. It's not unheard of in many parts of the world. It's not too common on the west coast of the U.S.
Yeah, but it's also a little boat.
It's not a cheap boat.
Yeah.
It's not
it's
not like a crazy
boat.
expensive one though either, is it?
No, they're not. Actually, by this point, 2007, they were selling for reasonably cheap.
Couple $100K?
Oh, less than that.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually checked some listings, and actually you can buy one of these nowadays. I saw them as cheap as like $35,000-$40,000.
Yeah, it's got a hole in the bottom though.
Well, that's probably not.
That's probably
not one that's like totally accessorized and in tip-top condition. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, probably not.
But still, I mean, does it? I mean, maybe. Yeah, I'm not a pirate, so I don't know. But it seems like a lot of work to have gone to for kind of a little payoff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's other possibilities though. I mean, supposing, for example. It's not necessarily a huge amount of work. Like let's say for example you do want to get a boat. You don't have to have a huge payoff. You just go down to the marina, sneak inside, find somebody with a nice boat who's leaving. Just say, hey, hi, nice boat. Jump on a board, pull out your gun, and say, hey, let's take a little ride.
Yeah.
There's some problems with this though.
There are some problems, but let me go through the scenario.
Yeah.
Let me go through. So we go out to sea. At a certain point, you've been assuring the guy, you play your cards right, you'll come out of this without getting hurt. You just say, I was joking, and you shoot him and throw him overboard. Mm-hmm. Take the boat, go to some other port, sell the boat, and whatever valuables and stuff. And you've got yourself maybe a free ride to another continent, and also some pocket money, a little walking around money. And so it's entirely conceivable.
Another continent? Did you mean country?
Well, another country, another continent.
Probably
I guess technically, if it was loaded properly with supplies, you could take it all.
Yeah, and probably far more likely that you would just take it to Mexico.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or Canada.
Yeah.
That's where pirates go.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
We talked about those Canadian pirates before.
It's true.
Yeah. Of course, there's a problem with this, and I was going to talk about. There's another possibility I consider too, which is, and so I'll talk about this one too, which is that. What if he was kidnapped by the North Koreans or somebody like the North Koreans?
Russians?
Or the Russians or the Chinese.
I was going to say, it doesn't have to necessarily be the North Koreans. It just has to be somebody that recognizes his skills and...
Google. That's who did it.
Actually, it was probably AOL in a bid to get back on top.
That's good. We don't want to be a joke anymore. We used to be king of the hill.
We created AIM, which they're shutting down. By the way,
in December.
That's right here. Yeah.
But anyway.
It could have been Jeeves, man.
Ask Jeeves.
Could have been MySpace.
In 2007, no. They were still doing it.
Were they still
Rick?
good?
What was it? Tom. It was Tom. No, it wasn't Tom. Tom didn't have that kind of organization.
No. Oh, was it Tom from MySpace? He was your first friend.
He was your first friend. His silly white T-shirt.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I forgot about Tom. It's been a long time since I've been on MySpace.
It's a different site now.
Oh, is it really? Mm-hmm. Is it porn now?
No, it's music.
Oh,
that's all it is.
Doesn't really matter.
It's artists
but
selling their own
I
music
guess
to
it
other
could
artists.
have been somebody kidnapping him, but also you think he would have been ransomed, especially when they saw NASA repositioning satellites. You think that the people who kidnapped him would have been oh yeah, there's a lot of money to be thrown at this guy. Let's let's ransom him.
Well, unless
no, you can. I mean, at that point, you double down. You know you've made a good decision, and you have stolen something that obviously has a lot of worth. And you're going to get your money's worth out of them when you get them back to your secret hideaway.
Yeah, you wring as much value as you can. I mean, if you've actually got a tech project that needs that kind of brain power working on it, hey, there you go.
Yeah, that's where the Raspberry Pi came from.
Yeah, but the Raspberry Pi, you know what that means?
No.
Okay. All right. A tablet?
It's an Android device.
So the Raspberry Pi?
Raspberry Pi is the operating system.
Oh, you're right. It is the OS, which means it was even more. It was Jim Gray.
Oh, so I guess I do know what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Actually, the phone calls to his wife and his daughter.
That kind of
sinks those theories. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of liking those theories at first. Like the idea of just some criminal who needs to get out of the country. But they're watching all the ports. They're watching the airport. I mean, they're watching the railroad station. Right? I'll just go get a ride on a boat. But again, he probably wouldn't have allowed the phone calls.
No.
Yeah, unlikely. Again, another theory that I was thinking about was murder, which is, again, the phone call kind of messes it up. Although I suppose, I say you're Bill Gates and you really have a grudge against Jim Gray. You go hide in the fore cabin and
just race out to meet him in your own speedboat.
Yeah,
because you're Bill Gates. Yeah, and you can have a 400-foot speedboat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a 400-foot cigarette boat. I can just picture this giant cigarette boat because like speeding up, and as soon as it dies down, it pulls alongside him, and this little door in the side of the hull opens up, and it's Bill Gates. Hey there, Jim. Well, anyway,
I think meeting you here.
Yeah, I'm gonna the murder thing. The abduction thing is actually some people who knew him are still kind of thinking abduction
because it's intriguing. It's interesting. It doesn't have the substance.
And it explains stuff. Right? It explains everything that the leaving for a new life explains, plus not having to accept that he might have wanted to run away from his own life. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. It's like if I were close to this case, I definitely would be like, yes, he was just abducted. Of course he was, because it explains everything. And also, he didn't do it voluntarily. Yeah. Versus us on the outside, I'm way more willing to say, yeah, he was totally willing to just walk away from his life.
And most of us just don't like the idea that, our friends die or we die through just some random chance dumb occurrence.
Yeah, it's hard to accept.
It's like, I want to have a slightly more meaningful death than that.
When I disappear, look for me in a cabin in the woods.
Yeah, okay.
With a rag stuffed in the tailpipe of your car?
No, just hiding in the cabin in the woods.
Oh, okay.
Living lavishly.
We're going to go kick in every door until we find him.
Steve! Yeah.
Steve, boom, boom, boom. Steve, you there? Boom, boom, boom. Steve.
That's how they found Kaczynski.
I'm pretty sure that's true, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Kaczynski.
What's next?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about another theory then. And this is a little more plausible, which is that he just hit an object and it sank his boat. Which could have been, that could have been a log or a submerged shipping container, submerged rocks, because the Farallon Islands, especially the southeast Farallon Island, apparently has a lot of shoals around it. Mm-hmm. So maybe he screwed up, hit a submerged rock, and he was sailing what's called the California Current, which is a current that flows down the west coast of North America from British Columbia to Baja California. And of course, as you know, driftwood is very, very common on our coast, the California coast, because trees fall into rivers from erosion and storms and things like that. Mm-hmm. They eventually get swept to sea. They wind up in the California Current and get dragged down and chunked up on our coastline and even points further south.
It's one of my biggest complaints about Canada.
Yeah.
All of their driftwood and trees.
All that crap they're sending us. Yeah. So he might have hit a log or maybe a shipping container. These are lost on a really regular basis. They found like 10.
Not were, are.
Oh, yeah.
Are lost.
Did I say were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, they are lost.
Consistently,
Yeah, no, I've heard estimates of around 10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Get lost off of ships. The containers aren't watertight; they won't float. But if what's in them is positively buoyant, well, then they will.
Mm-hmm. Like rubber duckies?
Yeah, exactly. If it's filled with rubber duckies or maybe Nike tennis shoes or God knows what, then they might wind up floating just barely beneath the surface. They are a little bit of a shipping hazard. You're not likely to run into one, but if you do, it can be bad news.
Yeah. Those containers are pretty solid.
Yeah, they're made out of very stout steel.
We saw what it did to Robert Redford.
Uh-huh. Oh, What movie was that?
I don't remember the name.
Anyway, but it turns out the CNC-40, the Tenacious, did have a few
where he
weak
didn't
points.
talk.
What's that?
We talked about this before. Is that
what?
Robert Redford movie where he didn't say a word through the entire thing?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't see that one. I know the one you mean, though. I heard about it. It's,
yeah, anyway.
It's called Robert Redford Doesn't Talk. That's right. Yeah.
Someone email us.
Yeah.
Don't.
No, I heard he goes through the entire thing until the very end, and at the very end he goes, crap.
Anyway. So
right.
what's the name of his boat?
Back to his boat, the CNC-40.
Tenacious, yeah.
The hull of this boat is made of a balsa wood core with fiberglass laminate on both sides, which makes for a very stiff, strong, but light hull. Mm-hmm. And these were originally built as they're sort of a hybrid racer / kind of pleasure boat, so they had comfortable accommodations, but they were speedy as well. They were overtaken by technology, of course, and so that's why they got cheaper.
Right.
Back in the day, they were spendy and really fast. But if the fiberglass delaminates or if it gets punctured, well, then the balsa core can soak up water. It eventually rots.
Sure.
And now you've got a big weak point that can be punched through pretty easily by something like a floating log.
Yeah.
And then all is lost, which is the name of the Robert Redford movie.
That's right. All is lost. Is that good, by the way? Should I see it?
Yeah, you'd enjoy it.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I'll watch that one then. Put it on my Netflix. Netflix.
Your next flicks?
My Netflix. I'm having issues with those guys. I'll talk about that some other time now. But there was another problem with the CNC-40, which is the keel.
And again, the keel is the fin on the bottom of the boat.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's like the surfboard fin, only giant.
Yeah, only a lot bigger, and it weighs a lot more because in a sailboat, it's got to keep it upright. In the case of the CNC-40, it's a 4-ton chunk of steel or lead or whatever that's bolted to the bottom of the boat. But the bottom of the hull on this particular boat is nearly flat, and to maximize headroom in the cabin, because remember, this was not a strictly Spartan racing boat. It was supposed to be kind of a nice cruising boat, too. Mm-hmm. They wanted full headroom in there, and there's very little room for transverse support, meaning beams that go across that help to support the keel. And keep it
from
even.
Side to side.
Yeah, and front and back and everything. Keep it firmly just attached to the hull of the boat. And so it's got kind of minimal support on the inside. And so what would happen is the keel is a dagger type, which means that it's actually taller than it is long. So if the attachment point is why?
No, wide.
Yeah,
Do you mean
wide.
taller than it is wide?
Yeah, well, I guess wide. When I'm thinking long, I'm thinking from fore to aft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Some people would see that as wide, but I see it as long.
Yeah,
it's longer than
Devin and
it
I
is.
are thinking of it from the side view.
Wider than long, yeah, okay, yeah, tall, long, whatever. Anyway, so the attachment point is not tremendously long, so stresses are not spread out.
Okay.
And so if you happen to run into, say, an underwater rock on your CNC-40, the front of the keel can be torn off the hull. The trailing edge can actually be levered up and around and into the bottom of the hull.
Oh.
So you can basically do a 180 in place.
Yeah, it goes. Yeah, it just comes right back up into the bottom of it. Yeah. And this has actually happened on CNC-40s.
And that'll probably pierce the bottom of the...
And in this one case that I read about, it hit a rock at 7 knots. The keel punched right through the bottom of the boat. And Jim Gray was...
It sank, yeah?
Yeah, and Jim Gray was sailing in an area known for its shoals, right? Mm-hmm. But, of course, if he'd hit a rock and his boat's taking on water at a catastrophic rate, then why didn't he run his boat up onto shore? I don't know. Maybe he thought he could still save his boat, and he didn't want to total his boat. Maybe he was actually too far from the islands. I don't know. But
maybe he hit a shipping container.
Yeah, that could have done the same thing.
In the middle of the shipping lane.
Yeah. But again,
or maybe he didn't realize what had happened.
Yeah, and so either one of these things. I mean, his hull. The hull could have been punched through by a log or shipping container, or he hits a shipping container with the keel, and it punches through his hull. But there's
a whole bunch of ways to put a hole in the bottom of his boat.
In the hull.
Getting at.
A hole in the hull.
Yeah, a hull.
That's the whole story.
Oh God. So the boat did have some weaknesses, but again, we got to ask, why didn't his EPIRB? That was emergency something. I forget what that's called.
Radio broadcast.
Well,
there's a lot of pretty simple reasons why that didn't go off.
Well, one is that apparently he kept it below decks. Yeah, because You're supposed to have them out, like maybe attached to your railing or whatever. But people usually, when they have their boats stored in the marina, they take valuable stuff off and lock it up down below.
Seems like a good idea.
Oh yeah.
Well, and he could have had it in something like this Pelican case that happens to be in the room that we're recording in, which are typically made to be watertight. So nothing would have activated it to go off.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But
if it was stored in that manner.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think they had it stored in like a cloth bag. They would take it off at the end of the day of sailing and put it in the cloth bag and store it below decks. Mm-hmm. And it might be that Jim felt like he didn't feel like deploying it because he's going on just a little day trip, but he's not actually going out very far into the ocean. Nice weather and everything like that. He probably didn't bother deploying it.
Well, the other thing is though he might have tried, but it may not have been maintained properly. Because they require batteries.
Yeah, it's true.
And if you don't check your batteries, they discharge themselves over time.
Yeah.
And that would completely, make the thing useless.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm kind of with Joe on this, in that when you're these kind of shorter day trips, you're not like, you are out in the middle of the ocean, but you're not out in the middle of the ocean, especially if you've done this run a number of times. You think, well, it's a nice day, not going to crash, and if I do, I can swim to shore.
And there's also,
I can save myself.
He's got the radio. He's not far from the Coast Guard. There's other boats around.
Yeah.
Even if they're not right next to you, there's other boats. You can
somebody will come
shoot
save
off
me.
A flare or get off a radio signal, whatever. He probably just didn't see it as a situation.
But
like you say,
this huge
he could have had one that just had a bad set of batteries and they leaked and or something like that.
Well, yeah, you apparently from what have come to understand, you have to do a little bit of maintenance on them. They're like your remote control. After a year or so, you got to change the battery.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even though they don't get heavy use.
Yeah, and so the EPIRB not deploying to me is not that mysterious given the circumstances. But again, that you still got to wonder. Well, why was there no radio distress call?
That doesn't really surprise me that much.
Well, maybe he was too busy trying to save the boat to get on the radio. And maybe by the time he realized that it was hopeless, the radio was already underwater.
Or fried for some reason.
Yeah. Or who knows? Maybe say if he runs into something, maybe he loses his balance and hits his head.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of reasons.
I think a lot of times about being like the first responder to like a medical emergency, right? And you're like, I'm going to run up to this thing, and then at what point do you call 911? It's like if you're the only person there and you're trying to assist somebody, and I'm trying to liken this to a ship, right? You're like, you're so busy doing all these things that you realize, oh crap, I never actually called someone. I've been so busy trying to do these other things, and it's too late. I'm doing CPR. I can't stop doing CPR because literally you're not allowed to stop doing CPR once you're starting to do it. So how am I gonna? I hope somebody comes along.
Yeah, it's
hope somebody
he's
comes.
the little Dutch boy with his finger in the dike trying to stop this one spot from leaking.
Yeah.
So he can't get away because if he lets go, it's going to leak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I can totally sympathize with the idea of it just being too late.
Yeah, it could be that he just
he didn't. Maybe he didn't realize.
Well, Jim was a very capable guy from everything I heard, and it might well be that he thought, well, I can handle this.
Yeah.
And realized too late, oh, maybe I can't handle this. Oopsie, my radio's fried. And get out the life raft. Well, it's too late for that too.
Yeah.
I'm still not so sure.
I think one of the other things, at least for me, I'm a very controlling person, as you guys know.
Oh yeah, I know.
And whenever I've been in situations,
bossy boots,
with after a life tragedy, like losing a parent, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you try to grasp at these straws of these are the only situations I can control. What can I control? And even I think it could even have extrapolated out even more in a situation with an emergency where he would be like, yes, I can control this. I can do it. I will take care of myself. It's all on me, and I can do it, and everything's going to be great, and everything's going to be perfect. And then it just kind of...
Yeah.
I don't think you even have to add the the fact of the loss of a parent to
but
that.
I don't think
he may have just considered himself such a competent sailor that he bypassed standard procedures because he knew better, because I'm a brilliant guy.
Alternately,
I know what to do.
we talk about this too a lot. I think just the last couple of weeks we've talked about this, where you never know how somebody's going to react in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
He could have just lost it. He could have just suddenly not known what to do at all and just totally frozen and been like, I'm going to release the jib. That'll help. And, it's like, well, in no rational brain is that going to help, but his brain just panicked.
It's just like, it's kind of like people act in horror movies,
Yeah.
Like, okay, I just clubbed the villain with a baseball bat. Now I'm going to drop the bat and run away. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
yes,
of course.
Sure.
I'm going to stop and call the orcas. They will save me.
Free Willy.
The only weakness of this theory, again, we have no radio distress, no flotsam whatsoever.
Yeah.
Although one theory that's been put out about that is that apparently it could be that if the boat was holed at the back, or even in the middle, took on a lot of water, there's more weight in the back of the boat. Fuel tanks for the diesel, also the diesel engine itself are in the back. It could have gone down stern first. And so, assuming he had nothing like laying around on the deck,
everything was strapped down like
everything
it's supposed
was either
to be.
strapped down or already below decks, and it goes down stern first, well, then nothing gets out.
That actually is one of the things that a lot of people point to, which we didn't actually talk about in the suicide theory, is that if he intentionally did this, he could have...
He probably was smart enough.
Yeah, he would have had everything strapped down. He would have shut the door and then punched a hole in the bottom, and the water would have come in, but nothing would have been able to actually escape from the cabin because the hatch was closed.
Yeah, you pop it. You can pop those hatches open actually for ventilation purposes. You can pop them open just an inch or two. Mm-hmm. So you pop them open enough to let air out.
But it makes it hard for things to get out because those things are too big to slide through that little hole.
Oh, yeah. So Jim, being a smart guy, he would know where the continental shelf was. He would go past it into nice, deep, deep, deep water where he's not going to be found. Because they did look around the bottom for him. My final thoughts on the whole thing are, even though I think that's possible, I still have a problem with that scenario, which is that, again, his EPIRB didn't go off, no radio distress signal, no flotsam from the boat. He couldn't deploy his life raft. I mean, that's a lot of things that should have happened. At least a couple of those things should have happened if he took some damage and started taking out huge amounts of water. Which leads me to think that, again, the possibility that he might have had a heart attack or a stroke or something. And
we were talking about this earlier. Yeah.
And again, the Coast Guard was searching, but they were searching initially, I think, fairly close in between the islands and San Francisco. And it wasn't until, as far as I know, I calculated how far, just under sail, he would have gotten at the end of the first day. We're talking 5 to 6 knots. He would have been around, and this is by 8 a.m. the next morning, the morning of the 29th. He would have been around 140 to 160 miles west of San Francisco, which would have been theoretically within the search area, but I don't know how far out at that point they were flying their planes.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, especially because as we talked about, he wasn't reported missing until like 8 p.m. that night, and then it was
p.m.
night.
And it's night.
And
so I don't know how far. I'm pretty sure that that immediate night they would have been searching between the islands and
I would agree with that.
Port of San Francisco.
So that gives him about 50 miles to play with, because it's only 30 miles to the island.
Yeah.
In 12 hours, he would have gone 70 or 80 miles. He would have been well outside of their search area at that point.
Sure, and we're talking like it's so he keeps putting another 180 or 140 to 150 miles of distance between them per day. And I don't think the Coast Guard actually started looking further out. They eventually went as far as, I think, 350 miles out from shore.
But eventually.
But by that time, he could have been far, far further out than that. And so, and I know that they brought all sorts of resources. All these satellites overflew the area and everything, and they looked at that stuff. But it's really hard to say without knowing what areas were photographed by this satellite and when the photograph was taken. It's really hard to say. I mean, if it was taken like 200 miles out, but it was taken like 3-4 days after he went missing, well, he would have been long gone.
Yeah.
It really.
So
is.
what's your best theory.
My best theory is that he had something incapacitated him, and the boat just sailed on
autopilot.
It just sailed on an autopilot, and then eventually, of course, the battery ran flat. The autopilot failed. The boat just started wallowing, and probably at some point it was just. And I'm assuming because it was a nice day, the hatches, including the main hatch, they were probably all open, and so probably the boat eventually just got swamped.
But somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where nobody will ever find it.
Yeah, probably. That's my best theory, but that's not conclusive at all. I mean,
Steve, what's your best theory?
I still, in this instance, it's either new life or he was abducted.
Yeah. I like to say new life.
New life, okay. Yeah.
I don't think it, in my rational brain, I don't think that's the best theory, but that's the one I want to be true.
Listen, he may have realized that he was. It's not in the zenith. He was at the tail end of his career, and he was starting to be outpaced by everything else. Yes, thank you. Yeah. And
like the moon.
Things were outpacing him, and he may have realized he didn't have too much longer that he was going to be able to be on top of the game.
And decided to go out on a good note. Yeah. Well, how about this theory? It only just occurred to me. Let's combine the disappeared on a new life thing with pirates. No, with pirates.
He went to go be a pirate.
Yeah, essentially. Well, the pirates go to take over his boat, and he starts talking to him. He says, I've been thinking about a career change, and I am leaving to go to Ensenada to start a new life anyway. Why don't I be? And he became a pirate.
I think maybe aliens could have just abducted his entire boat.
Yeah, they could have beamed him up to the mothership.
They beamed him up, and then he got there, and they realized how smart he was, and they were like, "Yeah, okay, we're keeping you."
Yeah, hey, dude,
it's great. You can be the person who will help us understand humans.
Can you fix our database?
Can you clean up our COBOL code, dude?
SQL is a bear.
We cannot get Windows 98 to work anymore. Can you just?
He's like, oh yeah, no, nobody could.
No,
I can't even help you with that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they dropped him in the ocean.
Windows XP.
Because they had the blue screen of death.
Yeah.
Dunk, 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 dunk.
I don't know. I think I just hope he started a new life somewhere.
Yeah, I like the idea of him becoming a pirate. He eventually became, captain of the pirates. But I'm going to go with he had a stroke or something like that theory. But it seems most likely, and it fits the facts of the best. But other than that, I can't really say much more. Jim, if you're out there listening, send us a note. Don't post on Reddit. Just send us an email, please.
We promise to keep your secret.
Yeah, we will keep your secret unless... Well, no, of course we will.
Yeah, of course we will.
All right, so that's about it for this week. If you're out there, of course, Jim, you're going to want our email address, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And anybody else, if you want to send us an email and argue with us or tell us how wonderful we are, whatever, you can do that too. Of course, we have a website. It is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, where you can listen to our episodes. You'll also find an episode list out there for all the many, many episodes we've done. And you can buy merch. Look on the right-hand side. You can buy mugs, T-shirts, bombs. I don't know what else.
No bombs.
No bombs? Oh, damn it. What else? We're on social media. We're on Facebook, where we have a group and our page. So like the page, join the group. Lots of fun stuff happening out there.
Answer the questions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Answer the questions.
You have to answer the questions, or else we will not let you in the group.
We now have questions. I forgot about that. Also, social media. We are on Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways. And we're on Reddit, where we have a subreddit called Thinking Sideways. And also, of course, you're going to wonder where else you can find us. You can find us on iTunes, which you probably know that already, but I'll tell you that anyway. And, of course, leave a comment, leave a rating. We like those things, good ratings anyway. And also, you can stream us on Stitcher and God knows all kinds of other places. All right, well, that's about it. So, looks like we're going to sail off into the sunset. So, till next week, ta-ta.
Bye, guys. I don't have any puns. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ahoy! Chips ahoy!
Aloha.
Oh, God.
This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by people who have successfully tipped cows. Instead, it's brought to you by Stitcher Premium, That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are on Stitcher Premium, where we are making available all of our episodes 4 days early. Those episodes are also going to have no advertisements in them, so you don't have to listen to stuff like this if you don't want to. And on top of that, little ice cream on top, we're doing bonus content once a month. So that's all available over at Stitcher. So go to Stitcher.com/thinking-sideways, and if you use the promo code SIDEWAYS, you'll get 1 month free when you sign up for the 12-month plan. So go over there. There's a lot of great content. You're going to enjoy it.
Thinking Sideways.
Hey guys, welcome to an episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined as usual by these two jabronis.
Joe.
And
Steve.
Yep.
And what's a jabroni?
Oh.
Is that like a piece of sausage or pastrami?
I think it's like an animal. I think it's like
or...
an animal's private parts or something. Yeah, you probably don't want to know. We can look it up.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Okay. Meat product noted.
Anyway, today we're going to talk about a disappearance of Ronald Tammen. It was suggested by Lily on Facebook a really long time ago, I believe.
Okay.
This disappearance that we're going to talk about takes place in 1953. Ronald Tammen Jr. disappeared from his dorm in Oxford, Ohio at the Miami University because apparently I have a thing for students who disappear in Ohio.
As long as you do, but as long as we get the school right this time, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
We can do another one.
This one, Miami University for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah. Because it's in Ohio, not Miami.
Which is just not confusing at all.
I was a little confused by that at first. I didn't, because I was thinking, okay, Miami, Florida, and then they started talking about the Midwest and stuff, and I was going, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's Ohio.
Okay.
Thanks, Ohio.
Yeah. So
Right.
Ronald Henry Tammen Jr. is the full name of the gentleman that disappeared. He was 19 on April 19th, 1953. He was a sophomore at Miami University. He was a resident advisor, a member of the Navy ROTC. He was a frat member.
Reserve Army Training Corps,
Yes.
I believe is what our... Okay.
I think it's
Just
reserve.
Not everybody knows.
Reserve officer.
Officer,
training.
you're right.
Yeah,
I would have.
Yeah.
That would have been RATC.
Yeah.
So,
He was a member of a fraternity back when that meant something. It wasn't just, drunken antics. I'm really excited for the emails we're going to get about that one.
Yeah.
He was a varsity wrestler. He was a bassist, etc., etc., etc. He was really like an all-American boy who he kind of just seemed to say yes to every opportunity that came along for him. He was very involved.
it was very stereotypical
Yeah.
of the time.
He was 5'10", 175 pounds, dark hair, light eyes,
Brown hair.
dark brown hair,
Yeah.
light eyes, really just like the all-American, nondescript. You picture the college boy in the 1950s, and that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some days before the 19th, it's reported. We're just going to go chronologically here
Okay.
before I tell
All
you.
right,
Because
yeah,
I already told you he disappeared from his dorm room.
Right.
That's
And-
the mystery.
We know
Right,
this.
this
Yeah.
is an easy way to
Yeah.
approach it. It actually is easy to follow.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's a little easier than a lot of the ways that they report it.
Oh, you mean where they report half and then the other half?
Yeah, and then there's like 12 paragraphs in between about who
Correct.
knows what.
Yeah. It's almost like I was reading, what was it, Esquire? An online Esquire article today, and I started skipping entire paragraphs because there was just like bounce around filler content. Oh, you just make a living. So this is really nice. I'm glad you did this.
Great.
Actually, one of the articles that Devin linked to in this one, I skipped a bunch of paragraphs because they were describing a prom photo.
Yes, I did that too.
And then I read a sentence. I skipped about 5 more paragraphs. I got through that one really fast.
It's actually that article was really, really interesting for me, but I agree there was some filler.
And not a lot of information.
Yeah. Well, there was some.
There was interesting information, not killer information, but good backfill.
Yeah. It was interesting for understanding Ron.
Yeah.
Not so much the case.